Welcome to the Sooner Surge, a podcast from SurgeSportsNetwork.com. Here is the entire Sooner Surge team. Brody, Hunter, Jason, Jaxon, Jeremy, and Traber.
He tells it like it is, and I'm going to tell you like it is right now.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Sooner Surge. We've got everyone here today to talk about all things football. We'll get on to basketball, softball, baseball, and others. So, just starting with football, some recent news today. Javonte Barnes at practice was seen on a scooter. So, don't know what the injury is there, but he recently has gotten hurt.
Now it's time, I guess, for Marcus Major to step up, guys. I mean, if Javonte Barnes' injury is serious, if Marcus Major can step up and stay healthy, there's no reason why he can't be running.
First off, we don't know anything about Javonte Barnes.
Yeah, I mean, it could be
that's why I'm saying if it's a long-term injury. That's what I said.
We know nothing about it. So
yeah, just as far as spring camp's been, spring game's in 19 days from now. So, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things that happen in the spring game. But one of the biggest things just from hearing coaches and players talk, the biggest thing to me that I've taken away is that the Sooners really have good depth in the safety room. And that there's some unknowns. I think everyone on here knows that Billy Bowman is going to be one of those starters, but you got Reggie Pearson, you got Key Lawrence, and with Key Lawrence, we've all heard it it seems like all the time that he's starting to put some things together, but the consistency's been an issue. I think a lot of us on here really like RSJ and his potential, and then Peyton Bowen, the 5-star. So, the safety room, it definitely has a lot of depth. It's, going to be interesting to see kind of how it plays out over the spring as far as, who steps up in that room. But definitely good to have depth because that's been a position where there hasn't been much of it in the past.
Well, I think what you saw last year with the depth is when Bowman got injured. The drop-off on that position specifically, and, they just didn't have the depth that they seem to have now. Now, time will tell. I thought they were loaded last year, guys. Going into spring here and everything. You got to admit, you kind of all thought the same thing. That, this is going to be they're deeper. And didn't really pan out. So I'm hoping it's different this year, really. But who are you counting on there other than Bowman? I would think just from the limited playing time he got last year, RSJ showed me that he's capable. I don't know. Key Lawrence is a guy that makes plays, but also last year he made some great plays, and then sometimes he kind of looked a little bit lost. So is he going to be the guy that's going to be more consistent? I don't know. What are your thoughts, guys? Key Lawrence has been out of position, moving back and forth, corner and safety over the last year and a half. I don't know that he's actually been stuck in one spot, and I think that's actually hindered him in his progression as far as his increase in playing time. So I think sticking him at safety and sticking with it would be great. And then, honestly, the corners for me is the interesting position group because there's some guys there, and you've heard great things about some of these guys in the past, but no one really left and jumped ship, so they still got some of those same guys. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And Jeremy,
when we talk about the corner, go ahead, Brody. Go ahead.
A good point there, and he's talking about Key Lawrence. He didn't play corner last year, but you're right, the year before last year he was working corner and safety. But I think I don't know how much of it is now he's only playing safety, but I think a lot of it with these guys is now they don't have to learn the defense this offseason. All of that time trying to learn stuff, they already know it. So I think that will really play a big factor into how much better they can become. I think a couple players have said it. Now, I think R. Mason Thomas said it. They're not as worried about, okay, am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I in the spot I'm supposed to be? And they can just go out there and play. So I think that'll help things. And then, like you mentioned with corner, you got Woody Washington, Jaden Davis is back, and Jaden Davis, he's an interesting one to me, kind of a wild card. Gentry Williams, Kenai Walker. Is Kendall Dolby playing corner? I think he will. And then the two freshmen, Wagner and Vickers, and then you add in another really good freshman this summer, Jacoby Johnson.
Yeah, true. And I mean, we all heard it. I don't know, Jason, Jeremy, if you guys have heard, but I know probably Hunter, you've heard. Josiah Wagner's been taking first-team snaps along Woody Washington. It sounds like quite a bit. He really has impressed, even over Makari Vickers. I'm super high on both of them. I do think Josiah Wagner will see the field this year. Now, I don't know how much of a capacity, and obviously his playing time could also be hindered on the point that Gentry Williams.
But don't you think – do you think Wagner's staying at corner?
Yes.
For sure.
He's 5'10". He's not – I mean, you can't –
They have their 6'7" guys at safety. They don't –
Yeah.
I mean, I know Hunter's big on Gentry, right?
Yeah. You hear Jeremy, you're a track coach. I think you've seen him run a few times a couple years ago when he was at Booker T. Washington. That guy's just so fast. It's not often you hear people say that he's too fast for the camera, and that's how he is. So I'm really looking forward to a year where he's going to get to see the field a lot. And we mentioned the depth earlier. Yeah, obviously years past we had depth, but the depth wasn't good. And now we kind of cleared house this year, brought in all these new guys. The old guys are getting moved out. And then Brody said it before, the guys who were here last year now know the playbook. They're not just, I mean, it's anyone will tell you the Brent Venables defense is not something you learn overnight. Like it's his schemes, everything like that. It takes time. And last year you would look first, second down, we'd do great. And then it's third or fourth down. It's the busted coverage on the big plays because it's just too much going on at once for someone who is still pretty new to the playbook.
And that brings up a good point too, because you look at the first couple games against Kent State. I want to point that one out specifically because OU and Georgia both played Kent State. And it's not me saying Oklahoma's defense is better than Georgia, but you can say they defended them better than Georgia did. Oklahoma played good defense against UTEP and Georgia. And I think part of the reason was because things were so simple. I think Brent Venables and them talked about it after the game. They weren't doing too much. They were just kind of, being pretty basic, pretty vanilla. So then once they kind of started to, get more advanced, I think, it became a lot on some guys. So, yeah, this year I think it'll be huge to kind of have it all be – they already know the defense.
Well, yeah, looking at Venables like at Clemson, he went from, I think it was like low 90s his first year to 24 to number 1. So last year we were, I think, 100 somewhere in there. So a big jump is due for sure.
Hey, and let's move on.
Well, also
go ahead.
I was going to say another thing that isn't talked about. I know OU fans don't like to talk about Alex Grinch anymore, but under year 2 under Alex Grinch, OU had a top 30 defense in the country.
We're not talking about Alex Grinch. I can't talk about him.
Yes, but my point is that this defense is going to make a significant improvement, and we all can expect.
You're right on that aspect. I just don't mention those guys' names anymore.
Yeah,
but that's fine. Yeah. Listen. Besides the fact that we're deeper than we have been, let's talk about the other reason the secondary is going to be better. When you got more dudes on the line, your secondary doesn't have to be as talented. Now, our secondary is more talented, but now we have dudes at the line, a little bit more depth there, too, that's going to just help the secondary. They're not going to have to cover as long. Yeah. So that's another area that's going to help.
You talk about the defensive line. Yeah. I think Rondell Bothroyd is going to be – I mean, as far as guys on the ends go, he's really the only one I'd pencil in as a starter right now. And then the guy I really think our Mason Thomas will be the guy this year. He put on, 20 pounds – and Miguel Chavis says he's more twitchy now. So just having him being able to make that leap, I mean, he said that he feels like he can move some guys now. So I think that'll be huge. I mean, this is his first spring ball in college. He was not an early enrollee. So he came in the summer and he worked his way at the depth chart, and I think he'll continue to do that. But looking at that room as far as defensive ends go, it's also got some good quality depth, which I think is good to see.
Yeah, last year it was 3, 4, maybe 5 guys that rotation the entire year.
He wasn't found after the Nebraska game. I don't know what it was, but he was talked to a couple of days ago or last week, and he said that now that there's more depth, he's kind of like, I got to get working. I think it brings a sense of urgency to guys like Reggie Grimes, maybe Ethan Davis. There's all these new guys in there. PJ Adebore, who's longer than Monday afternoon, as Miguel Chavis would say. You get all those guys in there, and it's just going to make the guys that were already there have to work even harder. It's just competition.
Yeah. And it just, in the Venables defense, it works better. You look at the Clemson, they were never going on 4 or 5 defensive linemen, and that's their rotation for the entire season. They're going 10 to 12 a game. They're constantly switching, getting guys rested. They're 100% at every single snap, and that's how a defensive line is going to create pressure. I mean, you can't have these guys running 20 consecutive plays on defense and expect them to be able to make a play in the backfield. That's just crazy.
And that goes with the linebackers too. But you look at your defensive end room, you have a guy in Jonah Laulu who started a couple games last year. And I think the fact that you can take him and move him to the defensive tackle, I think it shows that you have confidence in your defensive end room, what it is right now.
Yeah, and I think on the defensive line, the question mark is the interior defensive line. Because outside of Isaiah Coe, you can't tell me who's going to be the second starting guy. I mean, obviously, we all could guess it's going to be Jordan Kelly due to experience and everything. But, I mean, can Grayson Halton, can he get up that extra 15 pounds this offseason?
Jacob Lacey. Jacob Lacey's got experience.
Jacob Lacey.
Trace Ford's got some experience.
Is Derek LeBlanc. Derek LeBlanc.
They got dudes there.
Williams got to get healthy, but I think he'll be a contributor in that room. But then, like with what Hunter said about you can't have guys playing that many snaps. I mean, I really can't recall in Big 12 play a time that Danny Stutzman and David Igwebu were taken off the field last year. And this year, it seems like you have Stutzman, Kanik, and McKenzie. I think all three of those guys will get good time at linebacker.
Yeah, what I think, just kind of what I've heard and kind of just listening to some interviews and stuff with even this guy, to me, one of the guys that's going to make the biggest jump on this defense is Kobe McKenzie.
Yeah.
This guy, and he didn't play at all last year, and part of the reason is he was learning the system. And I think we look back now kind of like a rearview mirror from last year. We all had the conversations after games. We're like, why is they're not playing any of the youngsters? And I think maybe it was because they didn't know the system, and Venables like, hey, this season, I don't want to throw them out there and just let them get burnt. Let's let them learn the system, play with what they had. And I think you're going to see it this year. These guys feel so much more comfortable. And Jeremy, we talked about this a lot last year on the back end of the defense. They played a lot of zone. You can't play zone good if you don't know what you're doing. And obviously they were out of position a lot last year. So now this year in that zone defense, we've heard Venables say it in the offseason. We've heard other people say it is their number one focus this year is stopping the run. We saw them get torched last year. TCU torched them on running game. Their number one thing is to stop the run this year. So I think we're going to see – I do think we're going to see a big jump in the defensive stats as far as rankings for sure.
Yeah, you look at the schedule too. Like, really, if there's not it's almost 6 non-conference games this year. So the jump should – because non-conference play, we were great. There was no denying that. I think everyone on here thought we were going a long way after we beat Nebraska 49-0.
Who do y'all think right now? I mean, spring game's 19 days away. If you had to pencil in starting linebackers and Cheetah, who are you going with as those 3 positions?
As far as like
Danny Stutzman, Jaron Kennedy, and Deshaun McCullough.
We're talking about who I think
Point
will
blank.
start against Arkansas State.
Yes,
Those same 3 guys.
I would say Stutzman, Kanik, and Harrington.
Now, I actually am on board with that, but now, guys, Harrington, and let me talk here. Harrington right now, I think, has the edge over McCullough.
Why? Tell me why.
Jeremy, do we want to get in an argument right now?
Sure.
Jeremy,
I just want to know where Brody heard it at.
Let me talk.
Where'd you hear it at?
Can you let me finish my sentence?
Person.
Okay, that's only you. Okay, go ahead. Let me talk.
That's why I said it. That's why
Brody,
I said it.
you talk and then I want to talk.
Justin Harrington right now has the edge over McCullough because he knows the defense. He's been in the system. He knows the Cheetah position. Deshaun McCullough played linebacker and edge last year. Cheetah's more almost like a DB. Now, here's the thing. Justin Harrington, we've heard it every single year. And, I mean, I don't know. I think McCullough's on the field either way. I do think he beats out Harrington because I think the cream is going to rise to the top unless you're Justin Broyles. But, I think McCullough – he'll start, but I really think Harrington does make a big impact this game.
Here's what I say is I heard Kerry Murdoch today on the radio talking about this exact same thing. And he was talking about Jaxon McCullough, and he said people have seen videos and everything about him, and it looks like he's got cement feet, was what Kerry Murdoch said. And Kerry Murdoch said he thinks that too, watching him in person. He said, and this is not in games. This is just on drills, okay? But listen, either way, even if that's true, and Harrington is going to start at Cheetah, if you watch any of McCullough's tape last year, coming off the edge, rusher, they are going to play him somewhat. Maybe it's in a pack. He's going to play because he's so athletic.
Let me add to that too, because Teddy Lehman said it when he said that McCullough, he does look kind of cement-feeted, if that's what you said. But I think part of that is also because he doesn't know the defense. I agree. And two things he needs to do is just learn the defense and put on a little bit more weight. If he does that, I think he'll have a very good chance of starting. And another person who said it, if Jeremy wants to sit here and say, well, you don't know that. I mean, they're not in practice. Woody Washington's in practice, and he said it. McCullough looks a little slow because he doesn't know the defense. Jeremy, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Jeremy.
He's going on a rant right now. We can't hear him. No, you're going to leave and join back. Leave and join back. Jeremy.
What's
your Did he just get on the meat saying mine always does that?
Well, just as you guys say, I do think on the versus Arkansas State, Jaxon McCullough will start, right? But right now, Harrington probably is taking more first-team reps because he knows the defense better. I think that's a fair conclusion we can all come to.
I guarantee you, I really think McCullough starts. I don't know if it's at Cheetah. I think it will be. Could be at linebacker. Could be at a flex position like linebacker, play some linebacker, play some
Hey, if they go to a defense where they play three backers against a heavy run team, it's going to be Kanik, Stutzman, and McKenzie, in my opinion. If they don't play, they could go to that package and not play.
Yeah, McKenzie will play a lot, but we got Jeremy back in here. Just go ahead and
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep. People keep calling my phone, so it's annoying. Hey, Justin Harrington, I agree, knows the defense better.
There he goes again. Someone calling his phone. Jeremy, talk.
Put your phone on Do Not Disturb, Jeremy.
We can't hear you again.
So we'll get Jeremy back in here. But
I'm the one that always messes up. Okay, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Before we hit record, there was like 5 times that
Yeah. Before we get Jeremy back in here to get his thoughts, let's go ahead and check out Surge Sports Network, surgesportsnetwork.com. That is where you will find our podcast, articles, everything. We got all kinds of Oklahoma content. It's been a big weekend for softball and baseball. Traber and Hunter have had you covered with that. We have all kinds of things as far as sports and all that, different sports. Again, this is a Oklahoma podcast, so I bet most of you are Oklahoma Sooners fans. If you want a simple way to find stuff about Oklahoma Sooners, you go right here and you click the Sooners page. Then you can just go check out our most recent article. And once you get to the article, what you want to do is you want to come right here and subscribe. This will notify you after we post an article, post a podcast, post a double take, post a smoke room, post anything on our site. So, again, make sure you go check that out. That is surgesportsnetwork.com. Follow our Twitter, subscribe to this YouTube. And, yeah, so we got Jeremy back in here. Jeremy, you good to talk now?
Yeah, I'm good. Hey, I agree. Justin Harrington knows the defense better. Duh. He's been there for 8 years. He should know the defense better. And second of all, he's a specimen. He's a beast. He always has been. I love Justin Harrington. I don't know why he couldn't get on the field the last 3 or 4 years. But there's no chance. There's zero chance Jaxon McCullough is not playing. He's playing. He may play the edge. And Jay,
no one ever said he's not playing, though.
Jay, if he's so quick on the edge, he ain't slow-footed. I promise you on the shuttle drill. I promise you.
Maybe as in like a DB position is. But hey, would anyone on here?
Jeremy, real quick, Jeremy, what's the shuttle drill? Do you know?
Yeah, actually, I do.
What is it?
You want me to show you right now? I got some cones.
Show me right now. Get out your cones. I want to see it.
I'm not going to do it right now. It
I
has
want
to do with
see it.
quickness.
What is it? Explain
It
it
has
to
to
me.
do with quickness.
Explain it to me.
It's called your shuttle your feet, bud.
So you're going side to side?
Yes.
What happens when you rush? Do you go side to side or upfield?
You go upfield.
Okay, moving on.
Hey, would anyone on here actually be disappointed if Justin Harrington won the cheetah position job?
No.
I'd be all for it.
No.
Like Jerry said, dude's a specimen. But
As
change-
long as McCullough's on
Yeah.
the field.
Yeah,
The
that's my
thing
biggest
that
thing.
holds me back from Justin Harrington is last year we heard it in spring too. Justin Harrington, after he came back from being suspended whenever he left the team under the previous staff, oh my gosh, he's so athletic. He's this freak of nature. Well, he's got to put it. It doesn't matter what you do in practice if it doesn't count in game.
Well, and
Practice is
last year they had him playing safety too. So I think
Yeah,
now that
we have a practice All-American on the other side of the ball by the name of Marcus Major, and we all know how that has turned out so far. You got to be able to do it in the real games.
and if Barnes is hurt, which he was on a scooter, so I mean it'll be interesting to see how substantial that is. But I'm sure we'll start.
There's plenty of time before day one.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm saying what I was going to say is if Barnes is hurt, we're just going to hear more. Marcus Major looks like the guy. We're just going to hear more of that. I think he'll be a good running back 3 behind Barnes and Sawchuk. I really do. He's
well,
just gotta
and as you know, speaking of injuries, it seems like there's just. Go ahead, Brody. Finish.
No, you got it.
I didn't.
Okay. Well, speaking of the injuries, there's 2 offensive tackles hurt. You have 2 tight ends hurt right now. Javonte Barnes sounds like just got hurt. And obviously, there probably will be more injuries in spring. So I think it really is going to test the depth. And speaking of depth, the wide receiver room, guys, we've heard it. It's been competitive all of spring so far. So I don't know if you guys have an opinion on who will start, but I do truly think by day one of the regular season, DJ Graham will be one of the 3 starters.
I wrote about him last week. That starting seems a little much to me. I don't really see that as a possibility, but I do think he will be on the field because, I mean, we all saw it with his catch against Nebraska. Emmett Jones has talked him up highly. Emmett Jones recruited Graham out of high school, so I do think he'll be a contributor in that wide receiver room. I wouldn't go to the extent to say starting. But, I mean, he talked about it himself. He's got a lot to kind of, it's more just kind of getting it back. I mean, he played DB for, 3 years? So, yeah.
The starters are already set on the receiver.
Well, I'd say 2 of them are set, but
Sure.
2 are for sure. The third
for sure is Farouk and Stoops aren't getting passed up, I promise you.
I promise you that, too. But the one – to me, is it Andrew Anthony or Nick Anderson? Those are the 2 guys I think.
Yeah.
I think Nick Anderson.
Gibson.
But with Andrew Anthony,
It's going to be Anderson. Oh, sorry.
But with Andrew Anthony, it's interesting too because I don't know if you guys have seen it, but he's working punt returns, which to me,
I like that. I like that a lot. You guys know.
Kind of shows you got someone at punt return, you want to get the ball in their hands. So maybe they.
I'm extremely anti having starters returning kicks. You saw last year we had Billy Bowman returning. I can't remember if it was a punter or kickoff.
Kickoff.
And we missed like 4 weeks. There's no reason you have depth and you have guys that are insanely fast to not put a backup that's not going to play anywhere else there.
My thing is, okay, I agree with you, Jeremy, on Stoops and Farouk and stuff. But if you recall last year, Levy loves that little reverse to Stoops. It's like a quick, almost like a pass, but it's a run. But to me, if you're going to do that, that's when you put Anthony in that position because Anthony can fly. Maybe we don't use Stoops as much in that role. More of a
No, Jay, I agree. And one thing we're not talking about, OU receivers have to know how to block. If there's a guy that's not blocking well, they're not going to play a lot in this system.
You're right.
And speaking of that,
they do so many flare screens to receivers and backs that you got to be blocking downfield to be on this team.
Mm-hmm. And another guy who you're not gonna, if you want to say buzz, which the offseason, spring, and all that, I don't know, but one of the guys I think you'll start to hear his name be talked up come fall camp is Jacquez Petaway. I saw something where he ran a really good time. The dude can fly. He kind of reminds me of Mark.
200 meter, I think, is what it was.
You look at last year with R. Mason Thomas. I mean, no one was hyping him up at spring camp because he wasn't there. And then with Petaway, I mean, his speed, like you can't teach that speed. Like a dude that fast with that much talent, I think he will see the field in some form or fashion. I don't know if they throw him out there and say, hey, go return kicks, or maybe like a Gavin Freeman type thing where they run a couple plays for him. But I do think he'll find a way to contribute in that wide receiver room. But yeah, I think there's a lot of depth. I'm not concerned about it at all. It's just more of a see who the actual guys are. Like I know you have the guys that can do it. I just want to see them do it.
For the love of God, can we put Davis Bevel behind Jaxon Arnold, please?
He is going to – Jaxon Arnold will be a second string.
Thank you for change it now. Change it.
Because I will say, from some things I've seen, okay, Jaxon Arnold is clearly the best QB in this room. Okay? Now, I don't think all of us are shocked by this.
Not rocket science, Copernicum.
No.
There's not much of a competition from what it sounds like.
No.
I mean,
Dylan Gabriel has taken a step up too.
I think we're getting to that time where Gabriel's named the starter. I mean, listen to Jaxon Arnold himself talk, and it sounds like a lot from what everyone said. It sounds like Gabriel's the guy this year, and Arnold's going to learn behind him. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just great to have Arnold behind him.
They will have a package for Jaxon Arnold. Jaxon Arnold will play this year.
But
hey, go back to Gabriel's career. How many seasons has he made it through without being injured?
That's
not many.
Guys,
none.
I'm gonna say it right now. I think if Gabriel gets hurt, I don't think he starts another game. I couldn't see Jaxon Arnold getting in and giving it up.
Guys, there's no doubt last year, the way the offense was ran, the way Gabriel didn't really run, they knew if he got hurt, they were screwed.
Well, they can run it more this year. And
that's what I'm saying. You have a backup. You have Arnold there now that can take the reins. So there shouldn't be any holdback on anything like that.
Go ahead.
If Gabriel struggles at all at home this year, like where we're down by a couple possessions, he's not playing again. It's not going to happen. It's going to be the same situation we had 2 years ago. He's not going to play again because as soon as Jaxon Arnold gets on the field as the starter at that point, he's not giving up the position.
And everyone said it. I mean, the dude just has the it factor. And he seems to me like the type of guy that once he gets on the field, he's not giving it up. But he's talked about it himself. Like the biggest thing has just been the game's much faster. Not really certainly like pace as far as like running a lot of plays, but it's just faster in college. So I think once he's able to get adjusted to that, and I think Jaxon said it at the beginning of the pod about Josiah Wagner at corner. You hear kind of this freshman buzz, and we're a week into spring camp. That's all going to die down. You always hear it with the freshmen. So right now they're not doing much at complex at all, and I think that's why you got guys like Wagner or whoever that are just looking really good, and you don't know.
Also, it's the argument to that the freshmen are more talented than any of the guys they've had on the roster previously as well.
True.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
but
that's the biggest thing.
More, I think the buzz about the freshmen is just going to go down a little.
Well, I don't think you can kind of compare it to any other year because really you look at this class compared to any class we've had, and I don't even know how long. Like this class is so much better since the 247 era of tracking classes, the best class in Oklahoma history. And I've said it many times, this class from top to bottom is just so deep. And I think that's why it's pretty much every freshman that's at spring practice right now has a positive buzz around them.
Well, and all the past, when you had the great recruiting class, it's very scattered with its skill position big time.
Yeah.
And that's really where it's at. Other than that, the classes weren't great. So this is different because you built depth, like in the defensive backfield.
Exactly.
It's not just, or on the defensive line, it's not just a receiver, a running back, and a quarterback,
Yeah.
So
19 days, guys. We'll hopefully you guys are all there. Our fans, we'll be seeing you there at the spring game in Norman on April 22nd, 2:00. Be exciting to see Jaxon Arnold live in person. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and just seeing it all, the Kyler Murray stuff and all that, we can't wait to get the spring game. We can't wait to get there.
No, hold on.
But
Zach Bryan.
Dude, don't even start on that. That is
Yeah,
the
well,
worst thing.
That too, Hunter. I'm not gonna lie.
That is the worst thing. And mentioning that, I know Jaxon mentioned it earlier, the lack of depth at tight end. I know it was a joke, but
Booty.
injuries stay around. General Booty might be having to make the switch to tight end.
Booty might play the tight end.
I don't understand why they haven't thrown that idea out with Bevel.
Because we saw him try to get out of the pocket last year. But, yeah, I mean, spring game, we'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about it in the next 19 days on all of our podcasts. But, yeah, it's going to be fun. Hopefully it's a huge crowd. But speaking of huge crowds, this weekend, Oklahoma took on Texas in softball, and it was a sweep. So Jeremy, Jaxon, and Braden have talked about it on this YouTube channel. Traber wrote some articles, 2 of them, about the softball games. If you haven't, go check those out, again, on SurgeSportsNetwork.com. But, guys, was anyone actually 1% surprised by what happened this weekend? I think we all thought Oklahoma was going to destroy.
They are who they thought we were.
After what Mike White said, I think we all knew that was coming. He poked the bear, if you will.
Obviously, the Saturday game was kind of a little bit concerning, I would say, going into the bottom of the 7th. Obviously, I wouldn't say I thought OU was going to lose. I was a little bit maybe nervous because, it's 3-1 in the bottom of the 7th. And, I mean, really, if OU doesn't have Jada Coleman, this may sound like a Captain Obvious statement, but they don't win because she is debatably the most clutch player in all of sports right now. You talk about it last year in the College World Series several times against Texas in the national championship. She made huge plays to give OU the momentum back. You talk about it. She stepped up clutch several times this year. She hit that game-tying home run. Not many players in all of sports are as clutch as Jada Coleman.
Yeah, and she just has that it factor, the energy with her. When she does it, it's like how Baker Mayfield was when he won the Heisman at OU. Just the energy surrounding them, it makes the entire team better, and that's what happened. And really, on Saturday's game, I don't know, maybe it was kind of a sick April Fool's joke to Texas because OU going into the game, I think they had like 6 or 7 errors all year, and that game they had 2 that were costly. Allowed runs to score. Grace Lyons, best defensive shortstop in all of softball, had an error that game. It was just an off game, but they still pulled it through against the top 10 team.
Yeah, here's the deal too. You can. I would not have been a surprise if they would have lost one of those 3 games. You're playing a top 10 team, and they're going to lose a game again. But nobody's going to beat them in a series. It's not going to happen. They're not going to lose 2 out of 3 games. It's just not, because all you have to do is go look at their lineup. And when I watched the games this week, every stinking batter was in the 400 batting average. It's insane. And another thing is, you watch some of these other teams, they may have 1 or 2 girls that can hit it out of the yard. OU from top to bottom can go yard. It's instant offense. You're not going to keep them down 2 out of 3 games. I would be very shocked if they don't win the whole thing again because of that. It's going to be very tough to beat them 2 out of 3 games.
Yeah, and there's also a stat that I saw this morning on Twitter. I believe OU versus top 25 teams right now, their batting average is 398, and against top 10 teams, it's like 419. That's wild. 419 against top 10 teams in the country. That's almost 50% of the time you have someone getting on base.
I don't know if it was Haley Lee. Was it Haley Lee that hit the one like 400 yards?
Haley Lee is going to be like Jocelyn Allo. I hate to say that. It's hard to compare.
I never want to hear a
comparison to Jocelyn Allo. I did just compare it. And Jay, your comment was dumb. It's going to be really tough to beat them 2 out of 3. It's impossible. It's impossible for them to lose 2 out of 3.
It's not impossible. That is impossible. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
I said it.
Yeah, that's dumb. Impossible.
I would bet my entire everything that they don't
No.
lose 2 out of 3.
Jeremy,
The
go
only-
look up right now on your phone what the word impossible means. Go look it up.
Hey.
It means it can't happen. It can't.
Jeremy has
It
to give
can't
up
happen.
prize picks for the rest of his life.
Hey! I guarantee you, OU could pitch Kirsten Deal all 3 games and no one would still beat him.
That's too much, I would say.
Well,
It
if
can
you want to
happen,
talk
I just
about
don't think it
losing 2 out of 3, and Jay said it, he thinks they'll win the national championship. I think the only way they don't is if they drop one early in the College World Series before it's to the finals, because if you lose one there, then it's win
They
out
did that last
the rest
year.
of the way. No, they didn't.
And
not
they
last
still
year.
won.
Yeah, they did.
That was in the second part. I'm talking about in the first, like lose the first game, and then
They did like 2 years ago to that team.
Okay, 2 years ago.
They did
You
2
said
years
last
ago
year,
they did.
Jay.
James Madison and
Last year they lost
yeah.
right before the finals to.
But they lost
Hey,
to James Madison the opening game of the series.
2 years
Okay,
ago.
Jay.
Last
That-
year.
And they won it.
That
they
was 2
still
years
won
ago,
the
Jay.
I know.
chips.
And they
Jay, you
still
make
won.
absolutely no sense. Sometimes I don't.
No,
even know
you're
why I
saying that
bother.
that's the only way, Hunter. You're saying that's the only way they would lose, but they did it 2 years ago and they won.
No. Again, I don't even know why I'm arguing.
He's
with you on
saying
this,
that's
because
the
you're
only
making no
chance that
sense.
they're going to have
That's
a
the
chance
You're
to lose.
arguing with the
Yes.
brick wall right now. You're arguing with the
I
brick
agree
wall.
with
Yes.
you, Hunter. That is the only way. I agree with that.
Last year they
They're not
lost to UCLA in the game that you win, you go to the championship. So
Yeah.
that was different because then they played them again that same day, run ruled them.
I was there.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is they would have to lose like the first or second game to then you have no wiggle room at all. You cannot lose again, and you're playing another. It's not the same team. That's the problem with when they're playing the same team in a 3-game series. They're not going to lose. There's no way. No team is beating them twice.
Hey,
Also, the biggest difference right now too is that OU doesn't have just one star pitcher or 2; they have 3.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge
Yeah.
difference. Hey, what's more likely? What's more impossible, Jay? The Sooners losing and not winning the national championship in softball, or Porter Moser actually keeping a player?
Well, and you look at that. I mean, you look at their starting lineup from the first game. I think there's a really, really good shot that none of those guys return. And Sherfield, Nolan, Jacob Groves, Tanner Groves, and Jalen Hill. And Hill entered today, which to me is not that big of a surprise, except for the fact that he waited a while. I'd expect him to go to a really big school, and
It's a big surprise because what came out of his mouth, Brody.
Considering
Hold on.
Jeremy,
Hold on.
it's really not that
Hold
big of a
on.
surprise.
OU guys through and through.
Hold on, Brody. You expect him to go to a big school? What kind of school are you expecting him
He's
to
going to go the Brady Manic route. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah,
Jalen
he is.
Hill-
But you're the one who bashed him all this time.
I
Oh,
never
he-
bashed Jalen
No,
Hill.
I'm talking about
What?
both of you.
What?
actually did. Both of
You
you
always did.
Brody
Jalen
and
Hill-
Jay.
Y'all, you need to look up what bashing means, okay?
If you put
I had an
Jalen
opinion
Hill,
about him. I didn't bash him.
Jay, do you
You
even
said
know
he
what
wasn't
that
good.
means?
Why is he playing?
I never
He
said he
sucks.
wasn't good.
What I'm
Never said he wasn't.
Yes, you did.
No,
what
I
I'm
didn't.
trying to say-
Offensive
Jay, you
liability.
said it in the Tech game at the beginning of the year.
what I'm trying to say is that if you're asking Jalen Hill to give you over 10 points,
That's right.
he's not the guy. But if he goes to a big team and he's a defender, he can do all the little things. He'd be great. I'm going to be honest. He'd be great as in that position.
But
Hey,
Brody,
Brody.
he's not going to another team to do that. He's going to another team to be a scorer to try to
No,
grow
Hey,
his
Jay.
No,
Yeah.
Jay,
his
Brody.
route to the NBA is going to
He
be
wants to win a natty. He's going to a big school.
He's going to UNLV.
Hey,
go to like
Jay and Brody.
You're an idiot. You're
Jay and Brody. Why is he leaving?
to go to a bigger school.
Why? I thought he said he
leaving.
loves
Here's why he's
Moser.
leaving.
He's leaving because
he-
Porter Moser.
Yeah,
Listen,
he's leaving
he's-
before Porter Moser.
100% he's leaving because of Moser.
That's not what it is.
Yes, it is.
Jeremy.
Yeah, it's because the dude wants to be guaranteed a chance to play in an NCAA tournament. Can you blame him?
Why, and
Well,
won't they
why
have
is
an
that?
NCAA tournament?
Because of
Porter
Porter
coaches OU. Porter Moser coaches OU. He hasn't gone into the
This
NCAA
is-
tournament.
This is
Okay.
crazy, man.
And guess what?
Yeah.
My Porter Moser,
They're not going to go next year either.
His job
They won't go
depends. His job depends on if they land y'all on Traore, and they're in a solid spot. And if
I
they
got
do,
a question for Brody. I got a question
Hunter,
for Jeremy
they're not
and
gonna
Hunter.
land him. Actually, they've been contacting very big pursuing him. He's their number one target.
Make
right
it
now.
quick because I got to go to a
Maybe
soccer
Milo
game.
Susanna.
Two.
Just
Okay, let me ask you a question. This is
Before I go to a soccer game, let me answer
Dude.
this.
Who
Hey, Jaxon, Brody, or Jaxon, Jeremy, and Hunter. This is I know y'all are
Let-
more on the Porter Moser hate than me and Brody. So I
Let
got a
me
question.
start. Let me start with it.
Okay, Jeremy, what is the difference in these guys leaving than and getting weeded out as compared to Venables weeding guys out like
I wouldn't
David
say Hill was
Aguayo?
weeded out. Nolan Cortez, okay. I wouldn't say Hill was weeded out.
I asked Jeremy, what's the question?
I'm going to
what's
tell you the
difference?
major difference right now. The guys that have left OU in basketball have gone on to play great at great schools. Brady Manick, Alonda Swan, in big time programs. The guy
They
leaving
weren't
football-
Porter Moser guys, Jeremy. So give me. I'm talking about the
Manick
guys.
played
that
in
leave.
the Moser.
Alondas Williams, the guys you said, those are not Porter Moser guys.
Yeah. So
Did
tell me
Manick
how the
play in the
guys
Moser?
right
The
now
only
that left.
Porter Moser recruited guys he's lost are Austin Mason and Joe Bamasil. So
Hey,
And
hey, Brody and
Schroeder
Jay,
and-
tell me
Okay,
someone
big
he weeded out in football, Jay.
David Aguayo.
He didn't.
he wasn't recruited by BV.
He wasn't a Venables guy, Jay.
You're making another one of your dumb comparisons.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
What? Ashton Sanders? No, not him. The defensive
Austin
lineman.
Sanders is on the roster.
Hey,
Not
Jay.
Sanders. The other defensive lineman.
Who?
Before I go to a soccer game, Jay, let me say this. Jalen Hill stayed. He was a Kruger guy. He stayed and gave Moser a chance, and he's jumping ship, which tells you one thing. He doesn't like Moser.
Okay, Jeremy, but
Yeah.
answer this question.
He
Answer
gave
this
him
one
a
question.
chance.
Jeremy.
He gave him a chance, and he's leaving.
Jeremy,
Jeremy,
you
answer
talk-
this one question right
you
here.
talk to anyone who actually knows a thing, and that is not the case right now.
Jeremy, answer this question. I want Jeremy, Hunter, and Jackson to answer it. One by one. You don't have to get into detail.
He
But I
always
want you to
does
answer.
this every
With
talk.
Cortez?
Yeah, question.
Listen, with Cortez, Nolan, Hill, and Bamasil, if they would have all came back this year, do they make the tournament?
No.
Yes.
Not with Porter Moser as the head coach.
Jeremy, do they? Jeremy,
I
do
guess
they?
I guess it depends on how the other guys are, but
No,
probably,
Jeremy,
yeah.
do they? Yes or no?
Is Moser the coach?
Jeremy, do they? Yes or no?
Not under Moser.
Okay, don't know. Yes or no, Hunter?
Oh,
Hunter.
Jake, you
Hunter.
both said no, Jake. Jake,
Yes.
we're on your list.
At the end of the day, you can look at it in a way where now they can bring in another transfer portal guy.
That's right. That's
Really?
right.
okay, and they're not going to land anyone.
Johan
He's
Traore, Jeremy.
awful
I
in
know
the
you don't
portal.
know who he is because
Boo.
you don't
Hey,
know who
hey,
Johan
Hey,
Traore
I
is.
can guarantee
Hey, guess what? He's going to
Jeremy,
talk
you don't know
to
who
Hill.
Johan Traore is.
Ooh.
5-star. 5-star.
No, you.
Hey,
guarantee you that.
He's
He
going to
not
talk
get
to Jalen Hill. He's going to talk to Jalen Hill, and Jalen Hill's going to tell him how bad Moser is, and he will
That's
not come
not
to
why
OU.
Hill's leaving.
Dude.
You guys,
Yes, it is.
Tell me
Why
what-
else would he
Hunter,
leave?
no,
He's
it's
as loyal gets to
anyone
the
who knows
university.
anything, it's not why Jalen Hill's
Guy.
leaving. Jalen Hill's leaving because he wants to go somewhere where he can make it to the NBA. Playing at Oklahoma as in his role, he's never going to make the NBA. Let's face it. If he goes to Kansas and does what Kevin McCullough did, not even that. If he goes to Kansas, starts as a 4, and just plays great defense, he can go to the NBA. You can't do that at Oklahoma.
Here's the reality. Here's the
Because
reality.
of the coach.
Right here.
You can't do it.
Here's
because
the
of
reality.
coach.
Okay.
That's not what it is. Jalen
Brody,
Hill-
stop. Brody, stop for a second. The reality is this: Jalen Hill was Porter Moser's dude. He loved Jalen Hill, and Jalen Hill's leaving. Here's the deal: Porter Moser. This is it for Porter Moser this year. Period. Okay. If he doesn't make the tournament, or if they have a bad year, the guy's gone. I mean, he knows it too.
I doubt it.
So, no, he is. He's got to have a good year this year. So we're going to see if the guy's going to be a good coach or not, because he's going to have to bring in a roster turnover, and he's going to have to get good guys out of the portal, or this season's going to be a dumpster fire. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it will be.
He's going to have another year in the Big 12 and easier
No,
conference in the
This,
SEC.
to me, this is
and,
it.
and then still not make the tournament in the Big 12. It's inexcusable. I don't get how you guys defend him so much.
I'm not defending him.
This
No,
team's
no,
going to continue
also,
to regress.
forget
So when
that
they
the
win 3
conference-
games this year, Brody better love every game.
All right, Jackson, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, people forget. It goes right through their head or whatever that the Big 12's adding Houston. Houston into conference. That just makes it even more hard to get to the
BYU and
tournament.
Cincinnati at the same time. Those 3 are not good teams.
Here's
Well,
my honest opinion is
I
that
guarantee you, Houston will outplay OU their first year in the conference.
hey, this could all work out good. This could all work out good if
Yeah.
Porter does really good in the portal, because if he gets guys that are better than Bijan Cortez and C.J. Nolan and Joe Bamisile, then it's good.
Jay,
And if he
Jay,
lands more priorities, that's a
Jason.
Yeah, Hunter.
We had on this roster.
Yeah, Hunter.
When did he do well in the portal? The past 2 years he's been here?
I don't think he's done well in the portal. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So
So why is it going to change this year? Why is it going to change after you've regressed?
I didn't say it was
worse and
going to
worse.
change. I didn't say it was. I'm saying it has to if they want to be good. It has to. All right. So we can move on to baseball. We can move on to baseball.
Yeah, it was a great weekend at Eldale Mitchell Park. Split the series with Stanford after Thursday. Just watching it, waiting to publish the article. Longest game in the pitch clock era, I would say. Sooners gave up 23 runs to Stanford, lost by 12. And then Friday night, they shut out Stanford, won 2-0. And then Saturday, they won 6-5. Really like what you're seeing. Braxton Dotha he might end up being the Friday starter. He might be the Sooners' best pitcher. Another shutout against Stanford. We've talked about OU softball and how like the entire team hits 400. Now baseball 300 is the magic number, and you look at Stanford. I think they had one player under 300, and it wasn't like it's a Mendoza line player. It's like a 270, 280 player. You can see why that team put up 23 runs on Thursday night, and then you had Dothert go out there and be able to completely shut them down. So when you're playing the 7th-ranked team in the country, you need to really just win one, and splitting the series is, I couldn't be happier, really. It would have been nice to win the whole series yesterday, but when you're playing a team like Stanford, the bats are going to come alive at some point. When Toby said it on the radio broadcast, I don't know if they lead the country or not, but they've scored 56 runs in the first 2 innings this year. And in the 2 games that OU won, we held them scoreless in those 2 innings. So when you can only do that for so long. Like yesterday, they scored in the first inning. So Stanford, really good team. Really like what you're seeing. Bryce Madron's finally. I can't believe he didn't win Big 12 Player of the Week this week. He batted 600 on the week, 9 for 15 with 2 home runs and a triple. And finally, he leads the nation of walks. So his on-base percentage is like 475. He bats 263 now. Really good week, and you really like to see that from him, because last year at Cowley here in Oklahoma, he batted like 420, I think, with 20 homers and 25 stolen bases. So when you're going from the JUCO level to D1, it takes some time to get adjusted to the better opponents, per se. And he's finally starting to do it at the midway point exactly. So if he can continue to stay hot and the team can get healthy, they need Dakota Harris back. I'm losing hope on that happening. It's an injury that Skip doesn't know when he's going to come back from. It's one that he could come back, or he could miss the whole season. So if they can get
the other day,
what
he was doing some drills the other day, right?
Yeah, I think so. So who knows, really? Like, they need to get him back. He's the best hitter on the team, but this team has a lot of talent. Really, the only problem has been the bullpen. But again, halfway point, you're starting. This team was the same thing last year. They were a team kind of flirting 500, 500, 500, and then it was just like a rocket taking off, and they went on that stretch all the way to Omaha. So it's not getting any easier. You have Big 12 play this week. You're going to Baylor. And the biggest thing is you got to win the midweek games. They play ORU tomorrow in Tulsa. That's a really good team. They have 20 wins right now. You got to win it. They're a good team, but they're not a Power 5 team. You got to beat them.
Well, to me, when you're playing a 4-game series, especially against a really good team, those are tough, because you're digging into your fourth starter, and it really and that to me is the biggest difference in this year's team and last year's team is the quality. I think the quality pitching.
You look at last year. You had the entire weekend rotation was drafted. and the entire
That's what I'm
bullpen was
saying.
drafted.
So the chances last year of them winning 2 out of 3 were a lot higher than they are this, in a series. But
that's the biggest thing is you have to avoid sweeps. They finally ended the 6-game losing streak. That was a tough stretch. Kansas State's a pretty good ball team. Wichita State were just cursed. I wish we would stop scheduling them. Like, I don't know if it's too late for Joe C to change the schedule for next year and get them off of it.
They got to do something because the SEC is big time. I mean, the baseball in the SEC, we can talk about football, basketball. It doesn't.
I think baseball's better than the SEC.
Baseball.
I think that's the best sport.
It's insane. It really is. So
I don't remember what his batting average is, but he might be the number 1 overall pick. I think I have it up here.
Hey, you need to come next year to Arkansas when they play a series here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Dylan Cruz at LSU. Going to probably be the number 1 overall pick. Dude's batting .542 right now.
Yeah, and Arkansas is like 22-5.
Yeah, the SEC. And LSU just played – Tennessee was the number 1 team all year last year.
Yeah.
They played them. LSU swept them. Number 1 team in the country swept Tennessee at 10. It's crazy. So that's one thing. But that does help recruiting. OU's starting to have a rise in MLB draft picks as well. So when you combine that with you're an SEC school now, it's going to help out because I can't really think of a bad SEC school in baseball.
Yeah.
Like
maybe
it's Kentucky,
top to bottom.
I don't know a bad one really. So baseball, they got Baylor this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off for Easter. Going to need to win that series on the road before heading back. And next weekend's another big one at home, Texas Tech. So series you need to win 2 out of 3 in. But this team really, the biggest thing, make the Big 12 tournament. I think you have to finish in like the top 6, maybe 7. I can't remember on that. Make the tournament, and who knows? It would be nice to host a regional, but it's going to have to take a long stretch of wins to get that done.
Hey, before we wrap it up, though, I got 2 questions for y'all. One, is there a better women's college sports program than OU when you count gymnastics, basketball, softball? They're up there as far as women's sports. They're up there. I mean, who would you put above them?
Nobody.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Texas is probably
Alabama and LSU are really good. LSU is really good in women's basketball and gymnastics, but they're not as good in softball. But I mean,
they're still a ranked team in softball. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they're still good. So SEC women's sports is going to dominate. I mean, it's crazy. My next question was going to be, is anybody picking against UConn tonight?
No.
Nobody?
That team, I can't believe they didn't win by 15 on Saturday, really. I'm shocked Miami got it to, I think, 13.
I mean, I have a question for you guys, actually.
What's that?
I know this sounds like a wild question, but do you think that Caitlin Clark can make an NBA roster?
No, I don't think she can make an NBA roster, but listen, she could play men's college basketball.
Yeah,
for sure. And you know, while we're on this subject, I got to kind of say something. A lot of people were ticked about the Reese girl for LSU talking trash.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine.
Listen, Caitlin Clark talked trash, and it was fine. And you know what? Caitlin Clark, she didn't retaliate against this. I think it was great. I think the trash talking is great. I actually watched the women's Final Four. I watched them both games. I can't say that about the men's. I didn't. I didn't watch UConn Miami.
Hey, the trash talking is fine, but you know what's not fine? Kim Mulkey literally grabbing the referee.
That's probably the worst ref game I've ever seen.
We can walk out to half court with the and they're not doing anything about it.
It's a tech for tossing the ball out of the way of our team's huddle. Caitlin Clark gets a tech for that.
Yeah. And did y'all watch the game?
No, I was at the OU game.
I cannot stand the Texas softball coach. I cannot stand Bill Self. I cannot stand Jim Calipari. I mean,
John Calipari. Hey, two things real quick. I'm gonna.
Thank you, John. I don't know.
Hey, I got two things, and then I'm gonna stop talking. One, we're talking about rule changes. You've seen it in baseball. You've seen it all around. Men's college basketball. Two things. I would love to see the quarter system like women's. Okay. Second off, in women's basketball, college basketball, when they call a timeout, they get the ball at half court. The men need to do that.
Yeah.
Why is
They
the men not
kinda
doing
do.
it half court after a timeout?
They do.
In the NBA,
No, you can't advance the ball to half court.
That's only in the NBA. You can. That's under 2
You
minutes.
can in women's.
Yeah.
I thought that they get it at like not at half court, but close.
No, behind the baseline. They need
really?
to change that rule.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't.
Yep.
College baseball needs to get the MLB pitch clock. I was very anti-pitch clock before, but
I was too, but I love it now.
it's great seeing
It's
2.5
great.
hour baseball games.
Yeah.
Great.
I could turn on the Royals game and it's like, I mean, I would only sit there and watch it for 2 hours. It was great. But yeah, I think we covered everything in this podcast. I think we'll have a double take coming soon. Yeah, so stay tuned. Again, if you have not, I mean, we were talking about baseball, all kinds of sports. Talking about baseball, if you want to stay up to date with not just that, but all kinds of Oklahoma content, go to our site, Surge Sports Network. We have not just Oklahoma content, but even more stuff. So again, go to surgesportsnetwork.com, type in your email, subscribe to our site. We will greatly appreciate it. But yeah, as far as this pod, we'll have another one next week talking about more stuff. But again, I think we covered everything: basketball, football, softball, whatever it was. Yeah, I think it was a good pod. Everyone, make sure you subscribe, leave a review if you're listening on Spotify. And yeah, Boomer.
Thanks for listening, Boomer.